I'm joined by Weirdo Maxim, but I don't seem to see him on screen.
Last recorded 5 seconds ago.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Activated, the show where we talk about games. How pretty cool is that? The reason Maxim just decided to reverse himself into the computer chair is because we're talking about the one and only Tacoma.
I'm headed in.
Welcome aboard.
Yes, delicious food, taco.
Taco.
Wow.
Yes, we're talking about tacos today. We're talking about tacos. Tacoma, is it? Would you like to start us off with this one?
Sure, though it's a bit, how do we even explain this? From what I understand, Tacoma is a sci-fi game that is in the future where everyone is on space and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, everyone just disappeared in the ship. And now you, who were recruited by the organization and everything, need to find out what happened. Last you understood that 3 days ago something happened, and 3 days later you came to the ship and to understand. And then after that, you try to basically fix every puzzle, like, okay, who were these people? Why are they here? What happened? Why is all the memories corrupted? So on and so forth. And it's up to you to solve that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you're experiencing exactly what they experienced and learning information, but it's hard to tell like what exactly it is that you do in this, right? It almost feels like you're a fly in the wall, and you're taking in this information and then uploading it. But other than that, in terms of player interactivity, there's not really much objectives, right? I mean, we neither of us finished the game, but for the most part, it seems like this is more of just a player experience than a actual objective-based game, right? Which I can understand immediately might turn some people away from the game entirely. But I think for the most part, it's actually a pretty fun way to experience a narrative because you have complete control as to who you want to listen to, how long you want to listen to them. And it's up to you to piece things together through the multiple conversations happening at one time. And that's got to be one of the coolest things. The fact that it feels like a room with people talking and there's conversations happening that other people aren't hearing. The level of realism in the dialogue, I think, is very admirable. And that's also accommodated by surprisingly really good voice acting, which I wasn't expecting from kind of a more unknown game like this. But it's definitely a experience is the best way to describe this game.
What I also really like is for some reason it's basically displayed everything you need to know. Everything is displayed. Like when you enter the ship, they're like, oh, by the way, if you sign up, you're basically removing all your privacy to us because for education purpose. And so you just able to hear everything that you don't want to hear or everything they do. And there's just some scenes that, truth be told, is kind of creepy. One of them is like, okay, we're gonna get a recording file, we need to go. And I'm gonna say this, it's just uncomfortable. There's a scene where someone is taking a shower and it's been recorded. Luckily we can't see it. It's all silhouettes and everything, so you can't really see the person's face and everything. But to know that you've been recorded during your privacy, yes.
Yeah.
And so it has this feeling like, oh, this is the future? That's so cool. And then you see other parties like, oh, this is the future? Oh, God.
Yeah, it really leads into that dystopian vibe, and the more you actually look into the details, the more like eerie the whole situation feels. The fact that they have logs talking about like lawsuits of people losing their lives on the ship and stuff, it's definitely, yeah, it's uncomfortable, like you said, and the fact that you're there just seeing what looks like moments before disaster, right? What's very prevalent in this game is just the attention to detail in pretty much every corner of the game, which is very impressive. Every object has textures that are fully fleshed out and makes it feel like a real world that exists in 2088, which is when the game takes place. They have funny jokes within some of the labels. They have descriptions on the calendar as to what day everyone was doing certain things. There's also the whole accessing desktop situation where every once in a while someone will pull up their own personal computer in front of them in AR, which AR is a whole nother fun thing to talk about. But I was just so engaged purely by detail. The fact that they put in all this information. I first started playing this game kind of tuned in and tuned out a little bit because I was like, oh, let me watch some videos, catch up on some things while I play. And then what I quickly realized, like, oh no, I want to be fully engaged with this. I can't multitask this game. This has got to take my full attention. And that the whole time this is happening, it's not even really a game. You're not really completing any objectives. You're not faced with any challenges. You're just learning. You're doing research basically on these people's lives, and the lives themselves are not glossed over. They thought of character arcs. They thought of relationships. They thought of fascinations and interests. And just there's this one part where I connected to, whereas someone was basically complaining about their jobs, like, I'm working here and I'm not doing what I was even brought on to do and stuff like that. And I was like, that's such a relatable, like, just workforce feeling, and the fact that you got a snippet of that is something that's really cool. So absolutely, my favorite part is just following individual characters, seeing them leave one conversation to join another, and then going back and watching the original people's, piecing everything together. It's an experience, and it's all interactive and not a hassle too. With the rewind functions and the fast forward functions, you can really see all that you want to see in the most efficient way possible. You're a fly on the wall in every sense of the word, and that's what's really cool, I think.
There's also these things that the game doesn't tell you, but then you'll be like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. A bit of a minor spoiler, I guess. In one of the recordings, you find at the very beginning of the recording, you find out that, oh, the whole ship has stopped working and we only have oxygen for 3 days. What are we gonna do? And then you feel like, oh, there's gonna be oxygen for 3 days. And then you think to yourself, wait a minute, it's been 3 days. Why is there still oxygen here? And then there's this stuff like, why is there still no oxygen? And it always be back in your mind, and you try to find a puzzle, and then you start to realize things doesn't make sense as it should. Yeah. Some of the things that should work doesn't. Why?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, it's not actual puzzle solving in a way, but it's also, you're doing puzzle solving in your head. It's not for any objective. It's just because you're genuinely trying to figure out, this puzzle doesn't make sense. How did this thing happen? And it's the only, like, requirements of the game is to actually experience a certain level of information. It's not even all the information. That's up to you if you want to experience everything. But you just have to hit a few key points and then upload the data, basically. But at every point in time, I was doing way more than what I just had to do, because I genuinely wanted to learn things. In the gym locker room, someone had a locker that was locked up, and I was like, well, that's weird. I want to know the code now. And then I find out the code, and I'm able to open it up. There's not that much revealing information inside of it, but still, I was like, I want to know everything, what happened here. And the little tidbits, like what you were mentioning, 3 days of oxygen. This was recorded 3 days ago. I still have oxygen. Like, you just need to figure that kind of stuff out, and it just keeps you coming back for more, basically. I think one thing that's really interesting, they keep talking about this AR, and they refer to it as artificial reality, which is kind of interesting because nowadays there's a very prevalent mechanic called AR that means augmented reality. And the way augmented reality works is actually very similar to how the game was interpreting it. And it's basically when you implement 3D objects within a camera space. So it's real life with the camera, and then you have 3D objects inside of it. When I was interacting with objects in Tacoma, I kept thinking, hey, this feels like an AR object.
To give context, for example, this game came out in 2nd of August 2017. Pokemon Go, one of the augmented reality game, came out at July 6th, 2016.
Ah, okay. So it was still entering a little bit of the realm of the mainstream, I suppose. And technically the 3DS, had AR way back when that first came out, which is pretty crazy. Anyways, we're not talking about the 3DS today, but yeah, just some cool things like that. This game surely has to have a VR port. Is that true? This gotta, right? Sorry, I'm making you look up things so I don't have to. But every instance I was playing, I was like, this would benefit from VR. No VR. That's crazy.
No VR. Let me double check it for you, but I don't think they have VR implemented.
I can't think of a better way to play this game than in VR. That's crazy.
Tacoma has no. That's such a missed opportunity, man.
That is a missed opportunity. Well, I think just the level of details and everywhere, the easy functionality for experiencing conversations, the really good voice acting. Honestly, what this game reminded me a lot of was playing through Red Dead Redemption 2 in a way, because in Red Dead Redemption 2, you have a camp with everyone having their own personalities and their own gripes and their own relationships with people, and you get to be a fly on the wall when you walk to certain parts in camp and hear their conversations. Except in Red Dead 2, you can't just rewind it and follow everyone and experience it all again. You would have to play through the entire game, and that's a freaking long game. So slow, long game. So it's like, it's hard to fully appreciate it. While this, having everything isolated and rewindable and fast forwardable, you get to experience every inch of these people's lives. And I think that's what's just so much fun. And it's, again, something that just wouldn't work nearly as well if it had bad voice acting, but it doesn't. It's great. Everyone has varying tones in their voice when they're upset or they're happy. And that's just something I kept thinking, like, well, dang, this is stuff you would find in a AAA game, like this level of voice acting. And the attention to detail. Like, this is a small indie studio, and to be able to just texture everything with tidbits and stuff like that, it's incredible. It's very admirable. Even if the load times are really long for some reason, and the game starts in a square resolution for some reason, beyond all that, there's actually a almost AAA effort put behind it, which is pretty crazy.
Tacoma is a very, very interesting game. There's a lot of puzzles you need to connect, and in the end, we haven't played it till the end, so we don't know what the ending is, but oh god, it's gonna be big. It's gonna be big. And we are very excited to see it. The loading screen is also pretty nice, because when you're loading from one area to another, it's like a whole advertisement and everything, which is funny. There's a lot of things we haven't talked about here, and it's very well that you guys experience it yourself, because it's a game, it's an experience.
It is.
I do recommend playing Tacoma. You need to have full concentration on this game. You can't multitask it. You just need to get into it.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of times with backlog activated games, I don't go back and replay them usually. I like to experience it and then move on to the next ones, right? Because that's the whole point. But this is one of the games where I'm like, I'm going to come back to this one because I want to know what happens to this crew, right? So if that is enough of a recommendation for you, then it's enough of a recommendation for me. You should definitely try it. It's an experience. It's fun. It's not something you're going to experience just anywhere. It's Red Dead in space with less guns and horses and more rewinding and fast forwarding. That's how I'll put it, I guess. But I think that pretty much sums up our thoughts on Tacoma. Give it a shot. Also, give the subscribe button a shot, specifically on our channel. You can subscribe to other people too, like our personal channels, but give our actual channel, Backlog Activated, a subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I think with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys with the next game review.
Subscribe. We won't share your privacy. I promise.